The Speed Force spat him out in a world he didn't recognize, a world with vampires, secrets, and a girl named Dawn whose entire life is a lie. Barry Allen just wanted to fix two mistakes, not fall into the middle of another apocalypse. Hey everyone, this is TH Stories 80 where we narrate fanfiction audiobooks. Now we begin chapter 1 of the Sunnydale Speedster. Let's dive in. The West household, 2100 hours. Alone. That's how Barry, the Flash, Allen felt as he sat on the topmost step of the West's front porch. He gazed at the front door, the very one that the object of his affections, Iris West, had gently closed. Turning back, he stared out into space. He had been living with the Wests, Joe and Iris, ever since his mother died and his father was sent to prison. Barry had always had a crush on Iris, but he'd never acted on it. They knew each other too well, and Iris had always seen him as a brother, through childhood, high school, and college. It was only a few days ago that Iris had revealed her feelings for him, feelings he had reciprocated last night, and now the way he felt about the world and his own life. Last night might as well have been years ago. It was only seconds after telling Iris they should give a relationship a try that Barry's latest enemy, the one he thought had been defeated, returned. The murderous Zoom, also known as Jay Garrick, whose real name was Hunter Zolomon, had kidnapped Henry Allen. Barry had immediately chased Zoom to the old Allen home, the place where Nora Allen had been murdered, and there, Zoom had killed Henry in cold blood. Soon after, Barry had managed to trap Hunter in the Speed Force. Now, Barry's insides twisted. He had lost another parent. He had never felt so utterly alone. It was true that Joe West, Iris's father, had taken him in after Henry was sent to prison, and Joe was essentially Barry's foster father. He also had his friends, Cisco Ramon and Caitlin Snow, both brilliant scientists at Star Labs. He even had Oliver Queen and a gang from Starling City. But Barry still felt alone. Moments ago, Iris had told him that she loved him, that she cared for him, and they would get through this together. Barry, however, admitted that the hole in his heart from this loss might prevent him from entering a relationship. He couldn't help it. He heard what Iris said, that they could face anything together. But the loss of his father had taken a toll on him. He knew he loved Iris with all his heart, but he also knew he wanted his family to be whole again. With Iris's kiss still lingering on his lips, the young man made a fateful decision. He knew the next actions he planned to take would change the lives and fates of everyone in his life, but the hole in his heart demanded it, no matter how selfish it was. Barry stood up and walked down to the front lawn. He turned towards the living room window, his lips forming a gentle smile. Inside, he saw Cisco, Joe, Caitlin, and Iris clinking their glasses together in celebration of a brand new day. They had defeated Zoom, sent the Earth 2 version of Harrison Wells and his daughter back home, and restored the real Jay Garrick, a man who was Henry Allen's doppelganger. As Barry looked at Iris through the window, memories flooded his mind. All the fun they'd shared over the past few years, all the laughter and pain. He knew Iris loved him now, and he believed that whatever new timeline his actions would create, Iris would still love him. In his heart, he knew they were destined to be together. He would have his parents back. He would have Iris. The three people he loved most would finally be in his life again. He wouldn't be alone anymore. Whispering a goodbye to the people he cared about, Barry ran off down the street, a blur of yellow lightning trailing behind him. The Flash, guardian of Central City, the fastest man alive. He ran faster, the tachyon device beneath the lightning emblem on his suit boosting his speed until he was hitting Mach 14. He broke the sound barrier as he tore through the streets, a streak of yellow energy blazing behind him. He smiled when a blue-hued tunnel opened ahead, the gateway to the Speed Force, the very source of his power. As Barry entered the tunnel, images of his past, present, and future flashed around him. He closed his eyes, focusing. He was listening for the screams of his younger self, the night he had seen the violent swirls of red and yellow lightning engulfing his mother in the living room. Barry focused on that moment. but his concentration shattered when he heard a growl behind him. Snapping his eyes open, Barry turned his head and gasped. A black figure was racing toward him. It wasn't like the time wraith that had chased him before. This figure snarled and reached for him, its presence radiating hatred and decay. Barry ran faster, pushing himself past his limits. He glanced over his shoulder. The thing was still gaining, one hand outstretched. His eyes widened in horror at the red accents on the black suit. He recognized the shriveled face beneath the half-torn cowl. "Zoom!" Barry shouted, running even faster. Then he realized with dawning horror that he had run past the time window he was meant to enter. But he couldn't stop. Fear gripped him, fear of Zoom, the monster who had taken everything from him. He kept running, lightning crackling violently around him as the creature closed in. A cold, gloved hand clamped down on his shoulder. "Barry," Zoom hissed in his ear. "Look what you did to me. You made me what I am now, a force of nature in the Speed Force. You made me the fastest man alive." "No, get away from me," Barry screamed. He felt his energy being drained through Zoom's touch, his life force ebbing. Desperate, Barry pushed harder, wrenching himself free of Zoom's grip. He screamed as he forced his body to move faster, faster than ever before. The lightning around him intensified, crackling in a golden fury. Pieces of his suit began to peel away, first his sleeve, then parts of his leggings, and then his chest piece. Barry felt his entire being being stretched, as though space itself was pulling him apart. Zoom's laughter echoed in the distance, growing fainter as Barry surged forward. And then he saw it. A breach opening within the Speed Force itself. With a final burst of speed, Barry dove through. The rift sealed shut behind him. A minute later, Zoom arrived at the spot where Barry had vanished and screamed into the void. "You may have approached light speed, Barry," Solomon bellowed, "but I'm still coming after you. There is no time here, which means I have all the time in the universe to find you. Run, Barry. Run. I will find you." Sunnydale, California, 2100 hours. What does one do when they find out they're not supposed to exist? What does one do when they discover that the life they had been living was simply a lie? Those were some of the thoughts going through Dawn's mind as she trudged through an empty playground. She had wanted to be out of the house and away from her sister and mother, or rather, the people she thought were her sister and mother. Dawn had overheard Buffy, Joyce, and the other Scoobies talking about how she was something known as the Key. Mystical energy formed into a human being so that it could be hidden from a mad woman, or rather a hell god, a mad hell god. After overhearing the truth, Dawn had cut her arms and demanded to know from her mother, Joyce, and her sister, Buffy, if the blood was real. She wanted to know if she was real, but despite what they had told her, that she was real and that she was family, Dawn still felt differently. The only thought running through her mind after she ran away from home was that she was nothing. She was a walking lie. Walking past the playground with her arms bandaged and folded over her chest, the young girl looked out at the hospital in the distance. She stopped and decided to head in that direction. After taking a few more steps, Dawn heard the sound of distant thunder. She looked up at the sky. It was a clear night with no clouds in sight, not even wisps, and the stars were out alongside a full moon. Dawn slowly turned in place when she heard thunder again, this time followed by a gentle breeze. Her heart raced. Maybe coming here wasn't a good idea, she thought, spinning around and glancing behind her as another rumble echoed. A harsh gust of wind rushed past her just before a blue-hued breach opened several meters in front of her. A part of her mind screamed for her to run. This was Sunnydale after all, and any random portal could easily be a gateway to hell. Demons could be about to pour through, as if sudden portals mean puppies would come out of them, Dawn thought sarcastically as she ran toward it. Buffy would probably say nothing. I'm nothing to her and Mom anyway. And what the? Dawn stopped running, her mouth falling open as a blur, trailed by lightning, shot out of the portal, which immediately sealed shut. A heavy gust of wind forced her to take several quick steps back before she stared at the male figure now crouched and panting hard, smoke rising off the dark red suit he was wearing. That's something you don't see every day, Dawn thought, frozen in place. One part of her mind urged her to run back to Buffy, and the other told her to bolt toward the hospital while the stranger was still catching his breath. She looked at the hospital, then back at the man, who was examining his hands, arms, and torso. He hadn't seen her yet. She could still leave. Said Dawn, mentally kicking herself. Hello? Huh? Asked the man as he turned toward her. Dawn could see that the front of his suit, across the torso, sleeves, and pants was torn, strips of fabric hanging loosely. Her eyes flicked to his abs before darting up to the lightning emblem on his chest, and then to the partially torn cowl, revealing tufts of hair. He looked around, confusion written plainly across his face, before turning back to her. Oh, hi. Hi? Replied Dawn, taking a few shaky steps forward. Where did you... how did you... who are you? He hummed. Don't let this be another situation like when I met Kara, Barry thought, scanning his surroundings, then glancing back at the brunette in front of him. No, it can't be another Earth. I was aiming for the past. This has to be the past. And... what year is this? Asked Barry, vibrating his vocal cords to deepen his voice. The strange tone made Dawn stumble back, fear flickering across her face. Barry immediately raised his hands. Hey, it's okay, he said in his normal voice. You don't need to be afraid, I just need to know the year. Why? Asked Dawn, narrowing her eyes. Do demons like you... Say what now? Barry blinked, certain he'd misheard. Magic? Sure, he'd heard Oliver talk about that. But demons? That was new. Did you just say demon as in... You know, said Dawn, pointing to the spot where the portal had been. You came out of a portal leading to a demon dimension, and... you're kind of the hottest and most human-looking demon I've seen, but... I'm not a demon, Barry said quickly, shaking his head and waving his hands. I'm human. Look, where am I? Sunnydale, said Dawn, still eyeing him suspiciously. How can a demon like you not know? And what was that lightning behind you? And... Not a demon, Barry repeated, pointing to himself. And I run really fast. Anyway, the year? 2001, said Dawn, confusion growing. Thanks, replied Barry, frowning. He knew he'd missed his time window. Now he emerged from the Speed Force years too late. His mother was already dead. Just one more jump, he thought to himself. If Solomon chases me, he chases me. I'll save Mom and Dad. We'll be a family again. Hey, Barry said, shaking himself from his thoughts. Thanks. He glanced around again, concern flickering across his face, then back at Dawn. Why are you out here alone? It's late. That question is just creepy, said Dawn, arcing an eyebrow. Sorry, Barry sighed. I just meant it's dangerous. If you tell me where you live, I can get you home before I leave again. I don't have any parents. Or sisters, said Dawn, looking away. Adopted parents? Asked Barry. He wanted to leave, to try again through the Speed Force, but he couldn't bring himself to abandon a kid alone at night. She couldn't be more than 15 or 16. The protective instinct in him won out. He exhaled and told her about how he'd been adopted after his mother died and his father was wrongly imprisoned for her murder. I loved my dad, Barry said quietly, and I didn't understand why I couldn't be with him. I didn't want to be with Joe. Joe? Asked Dawn. The man who adopted me, said Barry. I'd run away sometimes to visit my dad, but Joe's a cop. He always knew where I was. Eventually, I did visit my father in prison, and I don't have a dad or a mom. Not anyone, really, interrupted Dawn. I'm sorry, said Barry as he knelt, looking into her eyes through his cowl. I didn't have my dad or mom either. My dad told me when I visited him that he didn't want me to come anymore, that he didn't want me to see him in there. He told me to stay with Joe, that Joe would look after me. And Joe did. I love him for that. Dawn looked down at the swaying grass. What I'm trying to say, Barry continued gently, is that I'm sure you have people who are worried about you. Maybe they're not perfect, but they care. They don't, Dawn murmured. If Joe didn't love me, said Barry, He could have given up. He could have sent me to the system, but he didn't. He stayed. Dawn didn't answer. How about I sit with you until you decide to go home, said Barry finally. I can wait. And if I decide not to go home? She asked, folding her arms. Everyone wants to go home, Barry said softly. Then he smiled a little. Sorry, I don't think I caught your name. Dawn. I'm Dawn. Dawn, Barry repeated. Everyone wants to go home. I bet the people who love you will come after you. They won't, whispered Dawn. If I win that bet, said Barry, you go home and give your family another chance. And if you lose? Asked Dawn, raising an eyebrow. Before Barry could reply, she smirked. Since you've got the whole secret identity thing going, I want to know who you really are. And I want to ride. I want to know what it feels like to run that fast. And then you go home? Barry asked. And then I go home. Dawn nodded. Barry chuckled and sat on the merry-go-round across from her. They sat in silence for a while, Dawn occasionally peppering him with questions about how fast he could run, what else he could do, and if he really wasn't a demon. He told her the truth. He wasn't a demon, and the fastest he'd ever gone was Mach 16. That made her eyes widen. He didn't tell her he was from the future. Instead, he said he'd come through a portal from Central City. Where now? Dawn asked, frowning. Central City, Barry repeated. Never heard of it, said Dawn, shrugging. But there are lots of places I haven't heard of. So, what do I know? Right, Barry said, smiling faintly. 15 minutes later, two distant voices echoed closer. Donnie, little bit. Dawn. See? Said Barry with a grin. Dawn turned toward the familiar voices. Barry and Spike. She looked back at Barry, but he was gone. Dawn! Buffy's voice came closer. Moments later, she and Spike ran into the playground. Dawn stood up, ready to lash out, to tell Buffy that everything she and the others believed was a lie. But before she could speak, Buffy pulled her into a tight hug. Buffy? Dawn asked, stunned as Buffy's arms tightened around her. You're real to me, Donnie, whispered Buffy. The two of them parted slightly as Buffy looked into her sister's eyes, holding her by the shoulders. We share the same blood. Summer's blood. You're my sister. I'm not protecting you because you're some mystical thing. I'm protecting you because you're my sister. I'm not... You are my sister, Donnie, Buffy said, tears glimmering. She hugged her tighter. Spike rested a hand on Dawn's shoulder. Hey, Spike, whispered Dawn. You had the Slayer worried, he replied softly. Red and the others are out looking for you. Oh, Dawn murmured, remembering Barry's words. To Mom and me, to Willow, Tara, Xander, Anya, Giles, and, heaven help me, even Spike, Buffy whispered, her voice trembling. The memories we have of you are real. We experienced them, Donnie. You're not nothing. We love you. I love you. I love you too, Dawn whispered, wrapping her arms around Buffy's neck. Do you think Mom's gonna forgive me for running away? On account of this whole trauma thing about finding out you're the key? Buffy said with a small smile. Most likely. Think I could get a raise in my allowance? Asked Dawn hopefully. Don't push it, said Buffy, slinging an arm around her shoulders. Let's go home. As the three of them walked away, Dawn looked back over her shoulder. A shadow shifted in the distance behind the trees, then a blur followed by a flash of lightning. She smiled faintly before turning forward again. Barry ran as fast as he could out of the city, a streak of orange light and wind in his wake. He sped past the sign reading, Thank you for visiting Sunnydale. Come back soon. And out onto the open road. He pushed harder. Mach 14, Mach 15, Mach 16, but nothing happened. No fissure opened. Skidding to a halt, Barry looked around, confused. He should have reached the threshold to the Speed Force. Why wasn't it opening? Maybe I need to go faster, he thought, accelerating again. The device beneath his emblem released a surge of tachyons into his system. Lightning flared around his body as he screamed, pushing himself harder. Still nothing. Barry skidded to another stop, panting. He tried again, running nearly to Santa Barbara, but the Speed Force remained silent. No, he muttered before turning back toward Sunnydale. No, no, no. Near the edge of the city, Barry finally fell to his knees. He ripped off his cowl and screamed into the night sky. No matter what he did,
he couldn't enter the Speed Force. He was stuck. To be continued.